I'm going to talk to you about a new organization that emerges out of two existing organizations, one of which is the UAViators Humanitarian UAV Network, and the other is Drone Adventures, both of which are an effort to apply drones to humanitarian aid and development. We founded WeRobotics with the goal of helping local communities apply robotics in general, not just drones, for social good. And I'm going to go into how we got there by telling you a little bit of story. When I was in April 2015, when the Nepal earthquake happened, I was in Dubai attending a United Nations working group meeting on emergency telecommunications, thrilling, and I was presenting on humanitarian UAVs, and all of a sudden all these people started coming up to me saying, "Andrew, this is it. This is the drone response. This is the one where drones will be, where the use case is clear, and we will be able to really make good use of the technology." And it turns out, be careful what you wish for, because the use of drones in Nepal was a mess. I won't go into details right now, but trust me, it was a mess. We had spent a lot of time with UAViators and 60 members of 60 organizations around the world developing a code of conduct that goes into how to act responsibly in emergency situations as a drone operator. It turns out code of conducts are essential. They provide guidelines for how to think about your work. They structure activity and practice, but they are not mandatory to follow. So we had some missing ingredients. We had difficulties with coordination. We had difficulties with making sure that people were acting in accord with local norms and with best practices in the field. The missing ingredient, my colleague Patrick Meyer, who founded UAViators, and I came to the conclusion after this event had taken place, was locality. What we were missing in Nepal, and which we had been missing in a number of other situations, was a local presence that was already there, capable of having capacity to use the technology, cultural awareness to be able to act sensibly within all of the various very sensitive situations that they need to act within to use drones, to respect privacy, to respect cultural traditions, and to act safely, and could manage the regulatory process from the start. It's a very tricky regulatory process to get all the various levels of sovereignty, all the various different entities that have to be engaged in order to be allowed to do this work at all. If we only had an organization in Nepal when the earthquake happened that was Nepalese, that had that kind of preparedness in place, we would have had a very different situation. Unfortunately, we didn't, so we decided to go back many months after the events of April 2015 had transpired, with the support of technology partners at DJI, who are leading manufacturers of commercial UAV technology, and work specifically around training of people that already had expressed interest and intent to use drone technology for work and resilience in their country. And we produced this map. We went out to Panga, which is outside of Kathmandu. I didn't personally go, but we had a number of other folks that organized this training for students at Kathmandu University. We collaborated with Nama and his group at Kathmandu Living Labs, and with the community disaster management group in Panga, and worked on creating an orthorectified mosaic that was very high resolution of Panga. The community gathered around, they did tagging of the imagery, collaborative mapping. It was an excellent learning experience. And we left behind the technology. We left behind the drones. We left behind a great deal of training curriculum, so that the goal we set was to do this to have them continue to do this work while we were no longer there. This is the map itself, and unfortunately there's a piece missing, as we discovered, as we were pointed out by our folks at the Community Disaster Management Agency. And one of the signs that we were actually successful was that our colleagues, the folks that had participated in the training, went back on their own and filled in this gap. They made this additional piece of the map and were able to actually add it into the existing map of Punga. They went back and created this three-dimensional model of the hospital at Kathmandu University. This was built entirely by drone, by students at Kathmandu University who had participated in the training. This was something which led us to think that we have a model here that needs to be thought through and applied elsewhere. So we began to think that innovation labs globally that focus on local capacity for developing applications of robotics for good would be an appropriate way to start thinking through having that preparedness capacity in place beforehand in areas where it's going to be needed likely. So we're in the process of building a global network of what we're calling flying labs that are situated in high-risk cities around the world, and where we're going to be working with similar groups of local partners to build capacity in robotics for social good. I spent part of the summer out in Maldives with the United Nations Development Program working on climate change mapping. We have a project going on in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and now in Bukoba doing earthquake disaster assessment mapping. We're beginning to also move into thinking through additional technologies like the use of underwater robots, which I'll come back to in a second. We went back out to Nepal in the beginning of this month and worked with, again, students and local NGOs, with a number of which have already been mentioned in Nepal, on fixed wing mapping. So not just using rotary wings, but using drones like the SenseFly EB to apply precision agriculture technologies to small farmers, and to think about ways that routine aerial surveys could be done in conjunction with agencies like the Land Survey Office and with other local groups as part of the existing capacity. So don't build stuff only for what is going to be needed in emergencies, but think through conditions like how we might be able to deliver medicine. We can start to think about the access routes up the mountains with partners like Vayu, which we're working on also in Peru, which we've been talking with folks in here in the Philippines about, to deliver medicine in between the islands, to build additional robotics capacity for other use cases. To think about, again, marine robotics, where up in the Himalayas we have lakes forming. We're working with citizen scientists to monitor those lakes and to bring them online as a way to understand the conditions that are leading to what are called Himalayan tsunamis. But where we're not just having those be scientific projects, but where that science is driven by capacity building imperatives, where we're not just learning about the conditions of those lakes, we're actually learning about how to be able to use technology routinely to prepare folks for understanding how to be able to mitigate it. And so I would close with just inviting folks that are interested in this kind of vision of the application of emerging robotics technology for social good, and the use of community-based models for how we're going to implement that, to get involved and join us and help us make robotics work for everyone. Thank you.